Desire your prayers this morning as we look into the Word of God. Appreciate the Lord's faithfulness, His mercy, His love. Appreciate His instruction. We can't do anything without Him. We need His help. I'd like us to look in particular in the book of Luke. The title of this message is Self-Denial and My Cross. Self-Denial and My Cross. Luke, the 9th chapter. I'm going to read verses 23 through 25. Luke 9, 23 through 25. And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me.
For whosoever will,
For whosoever will save his life shall lose it.
But whosoever will
But
lose
whosoever
his life
shall lose his life for my
shall save
sake,
it.
the same shall save it.
For what is a man
What is a man
advantage
advantage if he gain the whole world and lose himself or be cast away? That's enough right there. So as we look at this particular passage of scripture, we notice here these are the words of Jesus. And it starts out by saying he said to them all. And as I thought about that, this particular word that he was giving, his intent was for every single disciple that was around him at that time to understand what he was saying. Not only his disciples, but the people that were around when he was talking, he wanted them to understand. And it was put in the Word of God so that you and I, when we read it, that we can understand what is it going to take to follow Christ. What are the conditions for following him, and what's it going to take to become like him? And it was two things mentioned that Christ said. Christ didn't mince words. He didn't say it in a parable here. He said, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to deny yourself. And then it says, you're going to have to take up your cross daily and follow me. So these are the two things that Christ is trying to get us to understand today. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, do I truly want to belong to Christ and his kingdom? Now, there's a lot of things that people do in life. There are hobbies and projects and businesses and different things that people start. And then sometimes they get into them and they realize, well, it's going to take more than what I intended on putting in, and they end up quitting. Say, I can't do this. We live in a Christian world where Christ's requirements are still the same. Just because the world is evil, just because the world seems to be turning upside down and there's trouble and chaos everywhere, his requirements are still the same. Deny yourself and take up your cross daily. As we consider, what does it mean to deny myself? As I thought about denying myself, there are things about me that I really enjoy. There's some things about me that I recognize that God has worked with and made changes in because they didn't necessarily fit with what Christ wanted to make of me. And so I had to come to the point in my life where I could recognize that this actually was a part of me. And this was something that I had to make a decision that either I'm going to stay the way I am or I'm going to change. I'm going to allow God to work with me, and that means it's going to be uncomfortable. To deny oneself means I'm going to take away something that is a part of me. You know what? Let's put it this way. In the summertime, we enjoy the weather. And we know we can go out and we can go anywhere we want and we don't have to worry about wearing a coat. Well, you might be a person that don't like to wear coats. I just want to wear my t-shirt and jeans or polo shirt and jeans, whatever it might be. Well, winter comes. You're going to go out in your t-shirt. You're going to go out in your jeans like you've always done in the summertime. The degree difference is 60 degrees different. What are you going to have to do? I'm going to have to deny my preference, and I'm going to have to put a coat on. Why? Because it's good for my health, to keep me healthy. If I go outside in the wintertime with the wrong clothes on, eventually I'm going to come in and I'm going to be sick. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to catch a cold. I may have some frostbite on my fingers and toes. Arms have little bumps and things that form from the cold. I could catch pneumonia. Now, was it worth going out in the cold without my coat? Because that's the way I like to do. And that's the attitude that people have sometimes in their Christian experience is, this is the way I want to be. But Christ said something here. If you want to follow me, you are going to have to deny yourself, because the way you are doesn't line up with the way I am. What I desire to do in your life, you are going to have to deny yourself and let me have the right of way. I want to look at a couple of examples. You remember Jacob and Esau? Let's turn to Genesis, the 25th chapter. Genesis 25. I'm going to read verses 27 through 34. We're going to look at an example of a human characteristic that exists not only in this particular person, but it exists in all of us if we really look at it closely.
And the boys grew.
The boys grew.
And Esau was a cunning hunter.
Esau was a cunning hunter.
Man of the field.
Man of the field.
And Jacob was a plain
Jacob was a plain man. Dwelling in tents.
And Isaac loved Esau.
Isaac loved Esau
he did eat of his venison.
because he did eat of his venison.
Rebekah loved Jacob.
But Rebekah loved Jacob.
And Jacob sod
pottage.
Esau came
from the field and he was faint.
And Esau said to Jacob,
feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint.
Therefore was his name
called Edom. Pause right there. Now, you got two children in a family. One of them is the outdoor type. He likes to go hunting. He probably would hunt fish even. But he liked to hunt. And his father enjoyed when he went out and hunt, because he knew that he was going to be successful. He was going to bring back some kind of wild meat for them to enjoy. And his father really enjoyed the venison. Well, his brother wasn't like that. His brother liked to stay indoors. His brother was not the one that went out into the field. Out into the wild. He probably had a little garden that he would tend to. And his mother saw him as her favorite. Why? You imagine, because he was always around. I'm sure when she had some chore that needed to be done, I know I can call on Jacob's right here. I don't know where Esau is. He may be way up in the mountain range, stalking a deer. But here's two different types of people. And you notice how their parents had a little bit of preference. And so here's this scenario going on. Jacob and Esau. Esau was the oldest. Esau held the birthright in his family of his siblings. But he came in from being out in the wilderness, and he was faint. What does that mean? It means he was weak. He was tired. No doubt he had walked many miles trying to find the game that he was looking for. And maybe that particular day, he didn't find it. And so he expended all of this energy, and he came in, and here's Jacob. Got his little bean pot going. I'm just going to put it like that. He's got his bean pot going. I'm sure it smelled good. He had his herbs and his vegetables from his garden he put in there. And as Esau hit the door and those aroma overcame him, something happened to him. Now let's watch this.
And Jacob said,
Jacob
Sell me
said,
this day thy
sell
birthright.
me this day thy birthright.
And Esau said,
And Esau said,
Behold,
I am at the point to
and
die.
what profit
And
shall
what
this
profit
birthright do
shall
to
this
me?
birthright do to me?
And Jacob said,
Jacob
to me
said,
this day,
swear to me
and he
this day.
sware unto
And he
him.
sware unto
He
him.
sold his
He
birthright
sold his
unto Jacob.
birthright unto
Then
Jacob.
Jacob gave Esau bread
Then
and
Jacob
pottage
gave
and lentils.
Esau bread and
He
pottage,
did eat and
lentals.
drink,
He did eat and
and
drink,
rose up, and
thus
went his
rose
way.
up, went on his way.
Thus Esau
Thus
despised his
Esau
birthright.
despised his birthright. Do you see how easily Esau parted with what was valuable? Now, if Christ was on the scene here and Esau said, I want to follow you, Lord. And Christ said, you need to deny yourself and take up the cross daily. Do you think Esau had the makeup of denying himself? No, he didn't. Because we see in this example how quickly his hunger caused him to part with his birthplace in the family. Oh, it's worthless to me. I'm so hungry, I'll give anything for it. And some people are like that in their souls. This trial is so hard, I want it to be over, and I'll do whatever. Esau should have denied himself.
Yes.
He could have traded something else for some food. Or he could have just said, Mom and Dad, can you tell Jacob to give me a bowl of soup? But to sell his, what good is I'm about to die? He was not about to die. You see the exaggeration that he had. Oh, this hunger is hurting me so. I'm so hungry. I don't know what to do. I could eat a horse. You ever heard people say that?
Yeah.
Can you truly eat a horse?
No.
Do you see how our self gets in the way many times when there's a little bit of uncomfortableness? I could eat a horse. Oh, I'm so hungry, I could eat an elephant. Are you that hungry for Christ to follow him? Esau needed to deny himself. But you look how Jacob took advantage of that. He knew how his brother was. His brother was impulsive. There's a lot of people in this world that are impulsive. One day they live for God, the next day they don't. It's easy for them to set it down. Well, this situation I'm in, I'm going to have to deny myself. Well, I ain't denying myself right now because I got some things to say. And you see how it got him in trouble? Let's consider another example. Let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Let's get Judges, the 14th chapter. We are all familiar with Samson. Now, I want to read a few scriptures here because it sets a precedent and another characteristic of human beings when it comes to self-denial that we have to watch out for. Judges, the 14th chapter. I want to read verses 1 through 4.
And Samson went down
Samson
to Timnath
went down to
and
Timnath,
saw a woman in
Timnath
of the Philistines.
of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, who was the Philistines? The Philistines was the enemy. So what is Samson doing? Going and hanging down with the enemy, looking at their women. Read on.
And he came up and
Told his father and mother, and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Look at this. There's some things that's out of whack right here. I seen a woman. Well, there's a lot of women running around. You just saw one, and it's got your attention. And look at this. He tells his parents, get her for me for a wife. Does that sound respectful?
No.
He was already headed for trouble before he even started. Samson was given to his appetites. He was a person that lacked self-control. He probably did not have to deny himself hardly at all as a child because of the way he grew up. being a person. Samson was not a little person. He was a person of size and stature. He was built for his call from God. God wasn't going to send a skinny, sickly child to beat the Philistines. No, he sent a warrior. So you look at the characteristic of a warrior, they take what they want. And you can see this in how he spoke to his parents. Get her for me. Now, you talk to your parent like that, what do you think is going to happen? Back in the day, you would have got smacked upside the head. It's not like that so much today, but they sure will look at you and wonder if you lost your mind. And so read on.
Then his father
and his
him,
mother said unto
Is there
him,
never a woman,
Is there
among
never
the daughters of thy
a
brethren,
woman among the daughters of thy
or
brethren,
among all my people,
or among all my
that thou
people,
goest to take
that
a
thou
wife
goest
of the
to take a
uncircumcised
wife
Philistines?
of the uncircumcised Philistine? Now, there was some instruction given way back when God gave Moses and them the law. And there was instructions for them for finding their spouses. And so he has completely disregarded the commands of God. And his father is trying to remind him. Is there not? See how he has to reason with him? I imagine Samson had an anger problem too. For his father to have to reason with him. Is there not one among your own kin or among our people that you have to go get? One from the uncircumcised Philistine, a heathen. Samson was drawn to the heathen women. You know there's Christians like that today? They have trouble controlling their appetites and they are drawing to the heathen women. What happened to Solomon in his old age? All of these wives that he got, he started to follow after their gods and it dragged him down. The man who was the wisest of all the world has ever known. Now here's Samson.
And Samson said unto his
father,
Get her for me.
Disregarded totally what his father had asked him. Didn't even respond. Get her for me.
For she pleaseth me well.
For she pleases me well. Now that to me is a category of a spoiled brat. I'm not even going to respond to you, Father, as the questions that you have asked me. I just want you to get her. I want it. You're going to get it all right, Samson. You can't deny yourself. Read on.
But his father and his mother
knew not that it was of the Lord.
He sought an occasion against
the Philistines.
For at that time the Philistines had dominion.
The Philistines had dominion over Israel. So you see here's a man that would have had trouble following Christ's commands. If any would follow after me, let him deny himself. Or if anyone come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. Samson would have had a hard time with that, wouldn't he? He was given the appetites. There are characteristics of human beings where appetites control them. And part of self-denial was being able to recognize when an appetite is not going to help me get closer to God. And so what do I have to do? If I can't control that thing, I need to turn it loose. Ask God, Lord, deliver me from this appetite. Self-denial. If I am going to follow Christ and become what he wants me to be, this is what the writer said. We must prefer the salvation and happiness of our souls before any secular concern whatsoever. That's what the writer said. Do you know that the enemy knows what part of ourselves he can use to destroy us? And he knows what situation to bring about. How many young saved men have been caught by uncircumcised women? I'll put it that way. Heathen women. Tricked and duped. They come around, they bat their eyes at them. Oh, she loves me. No good well, that ain't the direction that God is leading in their life. And what happens? They give entertainment to it. And next thing you know, I'll bring it to church. Yeah, bring it to church. She may act interested for a little while, but if you give it some time, let's see how long she hangs around. Don't let your desires hinder what Christ is trying to work in your life. Self-denial. I like pizza. It's one of my favorite foods. It's always been one of my favorite foods. Matter of fact, I like pizza so much I worked at a pizza place when I was young. But you know what? There was some self-denial I had to do. I remember one occasion, family was out of town and I wanted pizza. And I knew that since I was the only one, I could get the toppings that I wanted. Well, I like extra cheese on the pizza. And so I decided to get my usual toppings and extra cheese. And I come home. So as I'm driving home, the pizza's sitting on the seat. What does hot cheese do when it's at an angle? It slides. So when I got home, my pizza looked a little funny. There was cheese on the whole thing, but there was more cheese in one section than the rest of the pizza. And so I said, well, this really looks cheesy. And I was getting excited about it, and I cut it, the piece, and I got to eating it. And I took a nice big bite because I like pizza. And you know that cheese got stuck in my throat? There was too much cheese. And it was stuck here, and I couldn't breathe. And I'm sitting there at the table, nobody around, and I had to ask God, Lord, help me. In my mind, I couldn't say it. And he caused that cheese to dislodge. Self-denial. I could have been dead that day. Died from too much cheese. Would you imagine that on the headstone? Here's a person that can't deny themselves. They died from too much cheese. Do you see how important it is? Yes. Children, you have to learn how to deny yourself. You have to recognize times in your life when there's things about me that I'm struggling with. And I need to ask God, Lord, will you help me? So I don't turn out like this or that. When you go to people's houses, I've been to some people's houses to do work. And they had so much clutter in the house, you couldn't even hardly work. They got to move the whole room out, and you still easing in, trying to paint behind a wall. What has happened? No self-denial. They keep everything. They hoard everything. I hold on to everything. Part of following Christ in self-denial is laying things off. I don't need this. I don't need this. There's parts of people's personality that God can't use. And a person has to recognize, you know what? This is a flaw that I have. It may have come from maybe a family trait or my environment that I was brought up in, the school that I went to, and it can cause me a problem later on when I'm trying to live for God. And I need to be able to recognize this is something that I need to lay off. Spiritually, dead by stuff. I done let stuff build up for so long, I can't even keep track of what God has been trying to work with me on. Take up your cross. It said daily. You know, there are Christians that take up their cross occasionally. Well, there's this big event we're going to have at church, and we want everybody to participate, so they take up their cross for that. But the rest of the week, they don't take up their cross. They carry on like they always do. But it is a daily thing. If I am in the weight room and I plan on, I want my chest is 44 and I want to have a 48-inch chest. I want to be a big muscular person. I'm going to have to go to the gym every single day to get from here to there. I can't go once a week. All right, I did a chest workout. And then I get the tape measure out and measure and no changes happen. It's going to take a daily routine. If I'm going to become good at any sport, I'm going to have to do something every day to practice. You don't just show up. Tom Brady didn't just show up to the game and say, let me toss the ball around a little bit and win all them championships. There was some work involved. Not only that, he had to have people to help him too. We live in a society that thinks, oh, I want this, it just magically shows up. This salvation, for us to represent Christ in the way that Christ wants us to represent him, we have to take up our cross daily. Now, what is our cross? These are the things that the Lord brought to my mind. Things that cut against what is comfortable. When he says get up at 6 o'clock in the morning because he's dealing with us about praying about something, that means I can't roll over and say, Lord, I'm still sleepy. I need to wait till about 11. That means I got to get up and take care of it. That means that the Lord tells me before I go to bed, you need to read a particular scripture. I'll say, I'll wait and get it in the morning. You need to read it at that time. There's a reason. God don't do stuff without a reason. If he comes to visit us from time to time, he has a reason and a purpose. He sees everything around in our life and he knows what's coming. Adversity is a cross. Most people don't like adversity. If I go to a person and say, I have this acre of land that I want you to turn over, and I got two choices for you. I got a good shovel right here that I know works, and I have a tiller over there. What are they going to choose? They're going to grab the tiller. I got to turn over all that. I want the tiller. I don't want adversity. You know what's going to happen if you turn over an acre with a shovel? You're going to have some blisters and some soreness. Do you know that the people that came before tillers turned it over by hand?
Yes, that's right.
Adversity. That means, well, I'm looking at my cross, I'll see some adversity. I ain't bothered with that. Part of being mature is being able to recognize what it takes to get what you want from God. And now I'm looking at that cross and I see adversity. You know what I have to do? Go pick up that cross anyways for that day, because you know what? I'm pleasing God and I'm trying to become like Christ. It's labor required to reach a place. Well, I'll give you another choice. You can either walk to school or I'll give you a ride. What are they going to choose? They're going to choose, give me a ride. I don't want to walk to school, especially if it's raining or snowing. No. I remember walking to school one day. I had to walk 2 blocks. It was minus 10 degrees. and my eyes froze open. And when I got to school, I was like this. And I walked through the door, and the heat hit my eyes and melted eyes. It looked like I'd been crying all the way to school. Well, you know what? That was what I had to do. I had to be at school, had to get myself up and walk in the cold. Did I like cold? No, I don't like cold at all. It's my least favorite thing. But you know what? That was my cross then. I could stay at home. Like I'm sure many people stayed at home that day. I don't know what the attendance was at school that day. It was cold. It was colder than normal. But I was trying to get to a place. I wanted to graduate. And so I had to get up and get out in the cold. Tense moments. That's a cross. Tense moments are situations that arise that we don't quite know how to handle. And it often occurs in conversation with others. Tense moments. Now, am I going to bear my cross? Or have I had enough and I'm going to tell them about themselves? Am I going to bear the cross? Or am I going to tell them about themselves? I'm sick and tired of this and that, and you did this and you did that, and it's got on my nerves. Is that showing Christ? What did Christ say to the man that he stood before and accused him? It said he answered him not a word. That takes something from God. To be able to stand there when you know you haven't done anything wrong and not say anything. That's part of bearing the cross. We're not going to be able to say something for every situation that we're in. Sometimes God going to say, be quiet. And that goes against the grain. Because you know what a human wants to do? A human wants to be heard. I got to get my point across because I know I'm in the right. Well, you know what? You can get your point across. And what did you just do? Sold your birthright just like Esau. Because you couldn't control your mouth. Afflictions. That's a cross. There are some people that God has ordained in their life that they suffer much affliction. And it's not just physical. It could be persecution. There are people in other countries, they want to follow Christ. It costs them something, doesn't it? They get beaten. They get thrown in jail. Some of them get killed. But they're willing to bear the cross. Then there's affliction. Job had done nothing wrong to anybody. He had lived a careful life. And here the enemy comes along because he ain't got nothing else better to do. Let me find somebody to pick on. And he went to God and got permission to pick on Job.
Yes, he did.
And Job is there having a conversation with his wife. And his wife said, you need to just curse God and die. She was tired of his affliction and she didn't even have it. And Job said, you talk like a foolish woman. Means you haven't considered what you just said. Shall we not accept the good and the bad from the Lord? That's what he told her. And he went through it. He endured affliction. He bore his cross. Disappointments. How many of us have gone through life and accomplished everything that we set out to do? Everything has worked out just perfectly. I've got all the money I need. Every car has worked. Never had to repair it. The house that I bought hasn't settled or anything. No repairs. Nobody's ever broken in. paint don't even fade. Don't have to clean the floors. Disappointments. It's a cross. Nobody's life is like that.
No.
Even the rich people's life aren't like that. Some of them buy stuff and they spend a lot of money on it and they end up taking it back because it don't work. Man has made it, it just don't work. Disappointments. How do we handle disappointments? You know, it reminds me of that story about the boy who was playing baseball and something happened in the game and he got upset and he said, I'm just going to take my ball and go home. And you know what? Some Christians are like that. I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm disappointed. God didn't answer my prayer the way I wanted him to. That's part of the cross. Take up the cross daily. After a while, if you go daily picking up that cross, you will feel strange when you don't take up your cross daily. There is a pattern and a habit that God is trying to build in us that leads to us becoming like Christ. The writer said this, he that will be a true disciple of Jesus Christ shall require no less than the mighty power of God to support him, as both hell and earth will unite to destroy him. When you and I decide to deny ourselves and take up our cross, the devil takes note. And he says, all right, we're going to find out if they mean business. And he's going to come against us. And he's going to come against us in many myriads of ways. Some we don't even imagine. But he's trying to see if we truly want to be like Christ. Let's look at a couple other scriptures. Romans 8:13. Somebody get that one. And then somebody get Luke 21 and 34.
Romans 8:13 says, For if ye live
after the flesh,
ye shall die. But if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body,
ye shall live. You and I are fighting against this earthly flesh, this part of us that can't make it to heaven. And it's not that we do this ourselves. We don't just go out there and say, you know what? I had the power to fast today. Esau could have said, you know what? I haven't eaten. I'm going to fast today instead. And he could have sat there and smelled them beans. And I'm sure they smelled good. And through his willpower, he could have resisted the urge to want to eat. But it doesn't work like that. That's a facetious example. But it said through the Spirit. It takes the Spirit of God working in us to help us first to identify what we need to deny and then to follow through with it. It's like you and I, we go out in that garden and my goal is to get healthy tomatoes. And so I put that tomato plant in the ground and about 2 weeks later, I got to go out there because there is weeds that have grown up all around that tomato plant. And what are those weeds doing? Sapping the nutrients from the tomato plant. And if I don't take care of those weeds that's hindering my tomato plant, I never will get tomatoes. So what do? I go out there and I'm pulling them out. Real careful, close to the plant so I don't pull the plant up. And I pull them weeds away and I cultivate it and I water it real good. And then 2 weeks later, I go back out. What has happened? That plant has gotten bigger. However, there's more weeds. And what I got to do, repeat the process again. When we go through our life spiritually, we have to check to see what weeds the enemy is coming sown. And as we identify them, Lord, help me. And the Spirit begins to work with us, and we begin to pull them weeds out. And what happens? We grow some more. We become a little bit more like Christ. All right. Luke 21:34.
And take heed to yourselves.
Take heed to yourselves.
Lest at any time.
Your
hearts be overcharged.
Your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting
and
drunkenness
and
the cares of this life.
So
that the day come upon you. You know what that in essence means? If you let the weeds grow, they're going to take over.
Yes.
And in that natural example, I never will get tomatoes if I let the weeds take over. If I let the weeds choke out that plant, what's going to happen to that plant? It's going to die. So spiritually, as I go through this life, I have to be able to recognize when the cares of the world are creeping in and hindering me, denying myself and hindering me from taking up my cross daily. Let's get 1 Corinthians 9:27. First Corinthians 9:27.
But I keep under my body.
And
bring it into subjection. Lest by any means. When I have preached to others.
I myself should be a castaway. Who was talking here? We're talking about Apostle Paul. Now, he is our example of someone who did follow through, who denied himself, who took up his cross daily, opposite of Esau and Samson. The Apostle Paul, let me tell you something about the Apostle Paul. He would be the equivalent of the highest scholar and the most accomplished person in our world today. If you consider the time frame in which he lived and how he was viewed before Christ got his attention. He was a powerful man. Not only that, he was extremely intelligent. He had the best teachers that you could possibly have. He had the zeal and the desire to be great at what he does. We see athletes now in our day and time, and you can tell the ones who are going to be great. Why? Because of their work ethic. They pour themselves into their sport, and that's all they think about. There are athletes that have nutritionists that they pay large money to specially formulate their diet for every single day. They have trainers that work with them to develop their body for the sport that they play. They spend millions of dollars on that. And what is their result? Many of them are successful. Some of them aren't. But one thing's consistent, they're always at the top. Apostle Paul was at the top in the day and time in which he lived. And you know what happened to Apostle Paul? He realized that he was on the wrong road. I'm going the wrong way. After Christ came and introduced himself on the road to Damascus, he saw something. I'm on the wrong road. What did he do? He humbled down. He said, Lord, what must I do? So that tells me he denied himself. Forgot all about what I was before. And he took up his cross. He went and followed them men because he couldn't even see. Lead me to where I got to go. And he was taught by Ananias. Received his sight. And this is what the Apostle Paul said. He said, yea, doubtless, and I count all things but loss for what? For the excellency of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, whom I have suffered the loss of all things. There was nothing left from his old world. And I do count them but dung. Why? That I may win Christ that Christ will want to dwell in my temple and use me. And we can see by reading the scriptures how much Christ used the Apostle Paul. The effect that he had on all the people around him. Why? Because he denied himself and took up his cross daily. One more scripture, Luke 14. Luke 14, verses 27 through 33. And this is in reference to taking up our cross.
And whosoever does
not bear his cross,
come after me, cannot be my disciple.
There's a condition there, isn't it? If you don't bear your cross and come after me, this is Jesus talking. What did he say? Cannot be my disciple. It's like two magnets. You got north and you got south. If I got a south and I put a south and I try to put them together, I can't put them things together at all. They will always repel. Our own ideas about what we think we ought to do, it contradicts what Christ wants to do in us. And so we have to give way to that. We have to allow God to have his way. All right, read on.
For which of you intended
to build a tower,
sitteth
down not first,
count
the cost,
whether you have
sufficient to finish this. This is an example he's using. And this tower he's talking about a defense tower. Now, yeah, I have a castle. I'm a king of a country and I have a castle. And there's a particular spot in my country that I need to put a tower for defense purposes. And if I say, okay, let's put a tower there, and the workers show up and we got 5 rocks, can I build a tower out of 5 rocks that's going to defend my country? No, I can't. It says you got to take account. What is it going to cost? Do I have the necessary materials to build the tower? That's what Christ is saying. He's saying, think about what you're doing. You want to be my disciple, you have to take some inventory. You have to look at what is it going to take, and am I willing to do it? If I only got 5 rocks, you think I'm gonna build a tower? No, I ain't gonna build a tower. Like, that ain't gonna do no good. They can just come stomp on them 5 rocks and push them down to the ground. Read on.
Less happily,
after you laid the foundation, is not able to finish it.
All that behold it begin to mock him.
This is what happens, Christian lives. When they refuse or choose to deny themselves and take up their cross, you know who's mocking them? When they go through that trial and they fail. Or they go through this tense situation and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Who's mocking them? Satan's mocking them. So much for you taking up your cross and denying yourself. You did it again. Can't keep your mouth shut. You see, that's what the devil does. It's a testament against that person. That all that they've said they've done, and here it failed. So that's what they look at. Here's this king of this country that built a tower, and all he did was lay the foundation, and his enemies come over and start looking at him. He couldn't even finish the tower. How is he going to defend his country? Read on.
Saying this man began
to build, was not able to finish.
For what king
going to make war against another king, sitteth down first, consulted whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000.
Or else while the
other is a good way off,
he sendeth an
ambassadors desire conditions of peace.
So likewise,
whosoever he be of you that will forsake not all he hath,
he cannot be my disciple.
There it is. You and I are going to get to a place in life. The closer we get to heaven, we got to turn loose of everything. There are people
that there have been people on their deathbeds that God has been working with, and he gets them to a place where he's ready to take them home. But there's something that they're holding to. And I can't take you till you turn that loose. Sometimes it's family. They're worried about their family. Sometimes it's this problem. Well, I had this business still going. What's going to happen with that? Everything. Those are cables that hold us here. And when it's that time when we have denied ourselves, we've taken up our cross daily, and we're at that point, it's time to break the cables. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're going to take your flight. There is nothing in this world worth holding on to. Somebody said, well, that's kind of cold. You don't care about your children? Yes, I care about my children, but they understand what it takes for them. I can't go to heaven for them. They got to go to heaven for themselves. They got to get a hold of God just like I had to get a hold of God. Am I concerned? No, because the God of heaven still rules in this earth. And that's the way we have to look at it. The song says, I don't want nothing here to hinder me. That's what the songwriter said. And we look at these scriptures and what Christ is talking about. This is what it takes to become like him, to lay down everything that's ourselves. Because what it is when Christ comes and looks at us, you know what he wants to see? I said this before. What does he want to see? Himself. He don't want to look down at you and me, and I'm going to use this natural example, and he sees your ear on his head, or your nose on his head, or your mouth in place of his mouth. This is what Christ is looking for. I'm looking for myself. I'm looking for people who can deny themselves, can recognize how much less value they are compared to Christ. I'm looking for people who are willing to every single day take up that cross. You know, a lot of people wear a cross right here.
They do.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
is it a reminder? Reminder of what?
Mm-hmm.
Reminder to take up your cross daily. That little gold cross ain't taking it up daily. It's talking about an inward work, not some show that I got. Mm-hmm. I'm taking up my cross. Everybody see, I got my cross today. Hey, I got my cross today. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. It's talking about a complete makeover, a complete change. You see all these do-it-yourself shows. Mm-hmm. Complete makeover. They go into these houses that are all messed up, and they tear everything out of there, and they rebuild them, and sometimes you can't even recognize that it was the same house. Mm-hmm. That's what Christ is trying to do in us. Remake us into what he wants us to be. What he wants us to be is an image of him which will fit right in heaven. Will fit right in. You believe the Apostle Paul fit right in? After his makeover? Yes, he fit right in. He's sitting up there right now. You imagine where he came from? He's got to be one of the most extreme examples of a change in a person that you can find in the Bible. Other than Legion. The man who had Legion was out in the temple, out in the tombs, running around naked with no control whatsoever. And it said, there's legions in us. Nobody could do anything with him, couldn't even bind him with a chain. But till Jesus came along, cleaned him up, it said he was sitting in the temple, clothed and in his right mind. And people was like, what's going on? That's what Christ is about. He's about changing people doing a complete makeover. Christians in this world today need a complete makeover. Because you know what it's going to do? It's going to bring the light of Christ even greater into the world. And people are going to have to make a choice. Because they ain't going to be without excuse. If God can change that person's life and change it from what they was to what they are now, there is no excuse for me. But people got to want it. Jesus said, if any man follow after me, will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. We won't get into the whosoever shall lose his life. Maybe that'll be another message. Amen.
Yeah.